Hi, I'm Lori Rozakis. Welcome to Video Aided Instructions Upgrade Your Writing series. This is the 6th program in the series, Connections and Transitions. Connections and transitions are linking devices. Why are connections and transitions important? Well, they serve many functions. First, they guide your reader through your writing. They prepare your reader for the ideas to come. They show that events happen in a specific order. Connections and transitions also point out key ideas and link related ideas. As a result, connections and transitions help you create unity and coherence. This helps you create a smooth and flowing style. Nonetheless, there are some common errors that you can make when you use linking devices. First of all, the obvious error is not using any at all, because if you don't, your ideas can be very choppy, and then your writing will not hold together. Another common error is using the wrong word or phrase, so you're not making the connection that you want. In addition, you can link unrelated ideas. If you do that, your writing doesn't have any logic, and you'll confuse your reader. And last, you can use too many linking devices and create a series of obtrusive, stringy sentences, very much like pearls, where you just link one after the other in a relatively boring way. So let's take a look now at how you use linking devices and some of the most common ones. They are transitions, repetition, parallelism, and referrals. Let's start with transitions. Each transition shows a very specific relationship, so you want to choose your transitions carefully. Some transitions, for instance, show time relationships, while others show contrast. Certain transitions show that one action is the result of another action. Some transitions show that examples will follow. Let's look at each type of transition now. Here are some transitions that show addition. Again, and, besides, for example, furthermore, moreover, then, also, another, finally, further, in addition, next, and to. If you look at these transitions closely, you'll see that some of them can be used in the beginning of a sentence, some of them can be used to connect sentences, and some of them can be used at the end of a sentence. Some of them can be used anywhere in the sentence where they make sense. For example, you might open a sentence with "for example," and you might use, let's say, "to" at the end of a sentence, and can go at the beginning of a sentence or in the middle of a sentence. You might have been told not to start with a word like "and" or with a word like "but," and I would say you can, but do that more in informal writing. In formal writing, you probably do want to avoid starting with a transition such as "and" or "but." Here are some transitions that show cause and effect. Recall that cause is why something happens. Effect is the result of that. Accordingly, because, for that reason, therefore, so, as a result, consequently, hence, since, and thus. As with the previous transitions you just learned, you can use these in different places in the sentence, primarily in the beginning and in the middle. You would pick the place that helps you create logic, unity, and coherence. Here are some transitions that show examples. Well, the obvious one is "for example." You can also use "for instance," in particular, in this case, namely, to illustrate, and specifically. You would like to vary these so it doesn't get tedious for your reader. So you might use, for example, once or twice, and then for instance, perhaps once or twice. There are also transitions that show comparison and contrast. Remember that when you compare, you show how things are similar. When you contrast, you show how they are different. And there are quite a few of these because there are many instances when you're going to want to show that things are similar and different. These are different from, in comparison, in the same way, like, likewise, on the one hand, same as, similarly, however, in contrast, on the contrary, unlike, nonetheless, on the other hand, but, yet, instead, and rather. Take a look at these and you'll see the ones that show how things are similar and you'll see the ones that show how things are different. For example, like, likewise, same as, and similarly show how things are similar. Whereas in contrast, on the contrary, unlike show how things are different. So you're going to choose the specific word that shows the relationship that you have established in your writing. Now here are some transitions that show concession. And when you show concession, you admit there is another side to the issue. Although, certainly, granted, naturally, no doubt, of course, though, to be sure, and whereas. You're going to want to do this when you're constructing an argument because it makes your writing much more persuasive to show that the opposition has made some valid points. What you're going to show is that your points are more valid. They are stronger than the opposition. And using transitions will help you do this. So now what I would like you to do is to pause the program to practice what you just learned about transitions. Link related sentences with the appropriate transition to create unity, logic, and cohesion. Then come back. Here's my sample answer. It may vary from yours, but notice how I use transitions to link ideas. Jacques Cartier established the colony of New France in 1534. I left that sentence alone. The French did little with their colony for more than 60 years because they were involved in long, costly wars within Europe. I linked those ideas to show cause and effect. However, some French did begin fishing off the coast of New France and established a fur trade with the Native Americans. I used the transition however to show contrast, and I used and to link ideas. Although, concession, no one would have predicted it, this fur trade would soon bring great wealth to France. So I linked ideas with these transitions, because, however, and although. In so doing, I linked related ideas to make my writing more logical and therefore much stronger. Let's continue. In your study guide, you'll find more lists of words and phrases that can be used to create additional kinds of transitions. For example, we've included transitions that show importance, location, summary, result, chronology, and qualification, to mention just some of them. Take a look at these lists now. Here are some examples drawn from these lists. Since pharaohs were considered gods, all things in ancient Egypt belonged to them. Notice the transition, since. The pharaohs charged taxes on everything produced in Egypt. As a result, The pharaohs were fabulously wealthy. Notice the transition as a result. Also notice, by the way, the semicolon before as a result and the comma after. I'm using a semicolon there to separate two complete sentences and a comma after result because I can take that transition out. It's a very standard and a very useful way to construct your sentences. Another example, however, no money passed hands because money did not exist at that time. This sentence has two transitions, however and because. Therefore, I'm linking it by showing two different relationships that make logical sense. And finally, here's another example. Instead, goods of equal value were traded. For example, craft workers received clothes and food for their efforts. Notice the transitions instead and for example. Take a second and take a look back at that second sentence, the one that has as a result. Compare that to the last sentence that has for example. Exactly the same construction. I have two independent clauses separated by semicolons, and I have my transitions placed there to create added logic and unity. So now what I would like you to do is to pause the program and link each pair of sentences with the appropriate transition. Explain why you chose the transition, then come back. Here are my sample answers. The train stopped running at midnight. Consequently, the tourists walked a mile back to their hotel. I could also have used as a result because both consequently and as a result show cause and effect. You'll choose the one that you like best given your purpose, your audience, and your individual writing style. Number 2. We may soon be eating food from sea farms. For example, algae is a high-protein crop that shows great promise. I used for example. I could also have used for instance or specifically. All three of those transitions show example. Number 3, Rita has so many chores. She has to do the laundry and feed the pets. Worst of all, she has to wash the floor. I chose worst of all. I could also have used finally or lastly. All three of those transitions show importance. So they show that I'm building from laundry, feed the pets, to the last one, she has to wash the floor. Number 4, on the one hand, Mark wants to lose weight. On the other hand, he is not willing to modify his diet or do exercise. I chose on the one hand and on the other hand. I could have used but or nevertheless. They show comparison or contrast. So returning for a moment to the beginning, I've done cause and effect, I've used example, I've used order of importance, and I've used comparison and contrast. So I've used my transitions to create unity and cohesion and logic in my writing. So now what I would like you to do is to pause the program and turn to your study guide. Cross out the words that are not transitions. You may want to refer to the lists that you've gotten earlier. Then come back. Here are the answers. All of the words are transitions except these words: homemaker, lukewarm, attractive, clock, rambling, eerie, and